Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, সম্মানিত দর্শক. We are back again with your favorite fortnightly program, Community Issues. The topic for discussion this evening is the rise of the far right. Some of you may have noticed that lately the rise of the far right has been on the increase, and there are racial attacks up and down in the country, also in Europe and in America. What are we doing as a community? Should the community do something about it, or should the community not? We have a number of guests tonight in our studio who are actively involved in trying to defeat the rise of the far right. Some of them have been in my programs previously. The faces are well known, and some people have joined us this evening from other organizations. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay with us. I will introduce my guest to you in a moment. If you want to participate in this program, there should be a telephone number coming up on the screen. Please call in and put your comments through, or if you have any questions, put it to our panel and we will try and answer it. Thank you for watching us, and I will now introduce my guest to you. My first guest is someone who's well known in the community and has been doing a wonderful work for the community over the years, and certainly for as long as I've known him. He is Unmesh Desai, who is sitting on my right. He is a Greater London Assembly member for City and East. Unmesh Bhai, a very good evening, and thank you for coming to the show.
And good evening and salam alaikum to you and your viewers.
Thank you very much. Sitting next to Unmesh Bhai is another very well-known face in the local community. He's been an activist for a number of years. He's Adam Allnott. Adam, a very good evening to you.
Good evening and assalamu alaikum.
Adam, you're also involved with the Young Fabians, aren't you?
I am. It's a youth-led think tank that came out of the Fabian movement, which originated in East London.
Right. And you're also a Tower Hamlet resident, aren't you?
I'm a Tower Hamlets resident on the Isle of Dogs, which incidentally I live in the ward which had the first ever BNP councillor.
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
Yes,
many years
I remember that.
And we got rid of him eventually.
Got rid of him indeed.
Successfully. Okay, and sitting on my left is Wayman Bennett. Wayman Bennett is a joint convener to stand up to racism. Wayman, a very good evening, and thank you very much for coming along.
A very good evening to you, and assalamu alaikum
Wonderful, thank you
for being here, and I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And sitting next to Wayman is Julie Sherry. She is the national organizer to stand up to racism as well. A very good evening, Julie, and thank you very much for coming along.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Right, my first question goes to Unmesh Desai. For the benefit of our viewers, could you please explain what is the rise of the far right?
Well, to put it very generally, the term far right covers a variety of groups and individuals as well who hold certain types of views that can be characterized as racist, as xenophobic, as ultra-nationalistic, nationalism in the wrong sense, patriotism taken in completely different direction to what we would understand it to be. And these are people, forces, who try to exploit people's genuine discontentment, anger, anxiety over issues such as economic insecurity. So we saw that in Germany in the 1930s, the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, which at first targeted Jewish people, and then the trade unions and other people, but whose real aim was to exploit the economic uncertain Germany to grab power. And we saw the horrific consequences of that, the Holocaust, the 6 million Jews who were gassed, and so on and so forth. So we see these forces at play around the world. What we have today in this country and in Europe is a rise in support for far right-wing parties who are seeking to exploit, for various reasons, people's uncertainty over the economic climate in this country, Brexit, what is going to happen with the fallout from Brexit. Well, depends on what type of Brexit we have. We may not have a deal. deal, no deal, people don't know. On the continent, similarly, there are movements that are seeking to exploit such fears. So in Spain, just yesterday, we had elections in Andalusia, a very traditional socialist area, where for the first time, a very far right-wing party got 12 seats. They've never done that before. So that is what we mean by the far right and the growth in support, racist, ultra-nationalistic, xenophobia, fascist, and is a problem, a serious problem, which we got to deal with, and that's why I welcome your program, giving us time, but not just for us, but for your viewers, as to who these people are. We must shine the spotlight on them. We must expose who they are, the thinking behind them, and later on, hopefully in the program, we can talk about how to defeat them, because they are a challenge to all of us, black, white, brown, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, people of no faith, people of all nationalities. They seek to divide, they seek to spread hate.
Yeah.
Alan, what do you, Adams, what do you think?
I'd agree with everything Umesh points to, and I'd say it is about the far right and people who play on fear, who are seeking to exploit a current state of economic uncertainty. We've had professors and academics look at the rise of the far right across much of Europe, and actually they can pinpoint the current guise or the current phase of the rise of the far right actually to the collapse of Lehman Brothers. So to 10 years ago, earlier this year. And it was the economic uncertainty from the last recession which actually caused a rise in far-right sentiment and fear across much of Europe. That's when we started to see the rise, but now, 10 years on from that, we really see the rise of the far-right bed in. I mean, we've got to the stage now where even in Sweden, probably one of the most progressive social democratic countries, you have the far-right party in Sweden being the third largest in parliament. It's quite scary. You've got Viktor Orban in Hungary. You've got a centre to far-right coalition in Austria. You've got in Italy the Five Star movement coming forward. All of these political forces moving. And then that's before you even look at this country and you look at the rise of UKIP. But now, how even the far right of the UKIP party has taken over and is starting to drag politics in the UK to the right. Because you're seeing the more, what some could call moderate elements of the UKIP party, sort of going into the Conservative Party, drawing that further to the right. So Jacob Rees-Mogg of this world and Boris Johnson playing on the fears which the far right try and dig up, and we're really seeing the political discourse in this country really turning to blaming the other, because that's what the far right's about. It's about blaming the other. It's not trying to look at the actual basis of the problem. It's about playing on the fears of those who may not be looking for simple solutions, but when simple solutions are offered and there's no other explanation and there's no other big push against it, they're easy solutions to believe in if you don't scratch beneath the surface.
Thank you, Adam. I will come back to you again. Now let me go to Wayman Bennett. You are a joint convener to Stand Up to Racism. What is your thought on this?
I think at the heart of many of these groups at the moment, particularly in Europe, is Islamophobia. That actually they've redressed up the arguments that they used against anti-Semitic. By the way, they are anti-Semitic, but the heart of the argument is many of these people are behind the unfortunate attacks on many of our sisters on the street. The police have said there's been a 44,000 increase in hate crimes, particularly against sisters. And I think we have to understand that back in the day, there's a park in Tower Hamlets called Al-Tabali Park. And we know that that National Front gang that murdered Al-Tabali was inspired by those people. And unfortunately, these people are trying to build up the same level of hatred. And I think it's a danger to all of us. It's a danger to... The real question is that they've got aims at being elected. Tommy Robinson wants to become an MP. He wants to become a councillor. And I think that these are very dangerous times for us, because many of the mainstream media, not people here, have given them a platform in order to actually misdirect the anger. So the far right are capitalising, as has been said before, on the anger and discontent, and redirecting that actually to different parts of our communities and saying these people are to blame, whereas if there was an honest accounting, the majority of people who have built this country, who contributed to it, are not to blame. There is a distinction between rich and poor, but it's certainly not the consequence of the different communities that live here, and they're attempting to build on that, and I think we have to recognise that and do something about it. Thank
you very much. Now let me go to Julie. Julie, sorry, being the only female in the studio, the last one to be asked. What is your opinion on the rise of the far right?
Well, I mean, I agree very much with what people have said already tonight on the panel. One thing I think that Adam touched upon was this question of, I think, a kind of polarisation that we're seeing coming out of really, an increased level of attacks on working class people's living standards, all over the world. We can see that happening, and you can see within this process, I think, where the far right get their oxygen from. It's about, really there's two solutions. One is we can say that actually we want to fight together to defend those living standards and to fight for a better kind of life that we can all have together, or we can go down the route of, listening to people that tell us that we have to blame our neighbours, or we have to blame people, that are part of our communities. And so I agree very much with what people have said. And when you have somebody like Donald Trump essentially taking a global megaphone to give the most tiny kind of defeated groups of very hard racists and sometimes fascists, it's almost like he's given them breathing confidence into these tiny wrecked forces that we've defeated in the past. So it's quite a dangerous moment in a lot of ways. Another thing that I would add is that often at the moment, I think because of that polarisation, the likes of Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who likes to call himself Tommy Robinson, wants to put himself as the voice of the so-called white working class. What is the white working class?
They don't represent the white working class.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, as a white working class woman, I never identify as white working class. We're a very diverse group in the working class, and actually, as much as we can see this polarisation, actually, he doesn't speak for very many people at all. I mean, lots of people might be pulled on different arguments at the moment, but
he only speaks for people with a very sort of narrow tunnel vision.
A very narrow group of ideas, and actually, I think one of the most encouraging things about being part of what Stand Up to Racism has been doing in the local groups and the big demonstrations is how much people want to come out and express that we are the anti-racist majority, our communities are diverse, we want to defend our Muslim brothers and sisters, or any other group that comes under attack, and that's something that I think the majority of people want to do, so that's been quite positive.
Thank you. Alan, Adam, you indicated you wanted to
Julie just touches on a great point, and it's about the working class in their communities feeling that they've not got representation anymore. You see the drop off in trade union memberships, you see a falling living standards, you see what you can see is the gap widening between rich and poor in our communities and our society.
That's the current government policy, isn't it? To austerity?
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, if it's that or if it's something else, what you're seeing is working class communities feeling like they're being not punished, but they're not being taken along. They're not seeing that rise in living standards. There's a pact you make with the government where it's like, I'll be nice if you raise my living standards. And at the moment, you're seeing a lot of these working class communities feeling distant from their living standards improving. So they're going to Tommy Robinson and other far right so-called community leaders, where they're giving them those simple solutions. It's the immigrants' fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. Come be part of my gang, we'll look after you. You got to the stage where you had an organisation called National Action, which is the first prescribed white nationalist terrorist group in the UK. They started white-only food banks, where you would have food banks started in local communities where it'd be whites only. Look, it's us that are helping you to survive. The government's not helping you, they're not helping you. That's exactly like how the 5 Star movement and a lot of far right parties in Italy have started up. They started food banks, they started community groups where they would go around and they would feed communities, and whilst they were doing that, I'll come and join our book club, I'll come to this speech, come to this lecture. Poverty breeds inequality, and inequality, opens the door to the far right. It's about tackling poverty, tackling inequality, and shrinking the wealth gap.
Thank you very much. Unush Bhai, did you want to add anything
I
further
was
to
just going to
this?
say that what we are fighting today, what we are seeing today is very different to, say, the 70s when we had the National Front and the BNP marching.
It was
So what-
very much blatant racism,
what
wasn't it?
Also, what this group says, we are not racist, right? But what they've done is latched on to Islamophobia in particular, both in this country and in Europe. The enemy within is Islamification of what they say, of a country and so on. And it's by directing their projects, their dialogue towards whipping up that fear and cause divisions in communities where people have various, as I said earlier, various problems, various issues, and so what they seek to do is to sort of capitalize, on this, on what they sort of see as a problem. Whereas, as Adam said, there are issues we've got to talk about. We all face the same problems: housing, the uncertainty of Brexit, the economy. Where is it going? And what instead these people offer is actually a very divisive message of hate.
Which really doesn't help the community.
Well, absolutely.
Okay, I'm now going to go to Wyman again. As a black person, and please forgive me for saying this. Why is this happening, and what are we doing about it? I mean, we defeated these people many years ago. Why are they coming back, and what can the community do to defeat them again?
I think that they're coming back. Firstly, they've been well funded. The Middle East Forum, European
I will ask you
Forum.
about their oxygen, as Julie has put it earlier on.
But
Yes.
just firstly, we've got people like Donald Trump, who's a president, who talks about a Muslim ban. In other words, legitimizing ideas. He's not a fascist himself, but he's opened the door to it by saying the answer to this is being able to do that. I also think the hard work we've done, in some senses, at first it's easy to be complacent because you think somebody comes up with a ridiculous idea that the problems in our society is to blame your neighbour. And by the way, the working class is multicultural, mixed. I mean, if you talk about Tower Hamlets, how mixed it is, how much it's contributed. And then what's happened is at first, I think they got away with organising because every time they have organised or opposed them, they pretended that they weren't racist. We're not racist, we're having a debate. And actually, if the debate is, I want to get rid, like for instance, Stephen Yoxie says that Muslim babies are time bombs. When the Olympics was going on in East London, he attacked Mo Farah and said Mo Farah is a barbarian, right? Now, at the time, no one listened to him because actually all of us celebrated the Olympics. This was Olympic, whatever it is. But nevertheless, he's got a voice amongst the young people and he's used the internet and YouTube skillfully in order to build a base. I think that has meant that they've slowly built up a base and once in a while they come out. And also,
And that's really a danger for the local community.
And one thing I'd say is that when Donald Trump said that Tower Hamlets was a no-go area for multiracial communities, and then tweeted Britain first, we have to understand the corrosive effect of somebody in such a powerful position repeating a lie.
Yes.
And then the fascists come along and they repeat an even greater lie. And I think those, Hitler, they said, always say a big lie if you want to divide communities. And I think those three elements have got into it.
Can I just stop you there? Wyman, because time goes so quickly.
Sorry.
Come to the point where we need to go for a break.
Sharp, yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. We're just going for a short break. We'll be back very soon. Thank you.